In this video, I'm going to be going over the top data science tools that I think you should be learning and also why you should be using them. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Leon, and over the many years of learning data science, I've had to use a lot of different tools to solve different types of problems. Data science is a very broad field, so you can use many different tools to solve the same problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a list of tools that I think you should be learning and also why you should be learning them. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. So first, let's start with the main programming languages of data science. You've got two really that are the most popular. You've got Python and you've got R. You can use them both for anything data science related, so things like data cleaning, data visualization, statistical learning, or machine learning, etc. There's a key difference between the two, and it's that Python is a general purpose programming language, so you can use it for almost anything. However, R is a statistical programming language, so it's built mainly by statisticians and it's used mainly by statisticians. Personally, I've had experience using both R and Python. I used R a lot during my undergraduate days, then I used Python for my data science projects. In my opinion, I think Python is perfect if you don't have much of a programming background. It's very easy to learn, easy to read, and it's got a generally smooth learning curve. And it integrates well with other systems as well. And if you wanted to do things like app development or web development, you can do that with Python. I would say R is good if you have a statistics background or your main focus is statistics. It's very good for exploratory data analysis and it's got very strong statistical libraries. Overall, both of these languages are very popular. I'd say Python is the most popular one just because it's so easy to learn. However, R isn't really going away anytime soon, so I wouldn't worry too much about picking the trendy one. Just make sure that you pick at least one of these languages and you get started with them. Also leave a comment down below about which one you prefer, because there always seems to be such a divide between Python data scientists and R data scientists. Personally, I just picked the one that I think fits my needs the most, but it's always interesting to see what people think. The next thing that I think you really need to know is how to use Git. So Git is a version controlling language and it's used to version control your projects and your code. So if anything goes wrong, basically you have a history of your project and how it's changed over time. And so you can just kind of roll back to a previous state of your project. It's very important when you work in a team to be able to use Git because it allows you to coordinate the changes that you make together. And the last thing you want is breaking stuff because multiple people are working on the same piece. It's very important to know at least the basics of Git. So basically how it works is you would have a cloud service provider that stores your project files in something called a repository. You would then have a local copy of that repository, and then Git is the language that you use to sync your local version with the cloud version. That cloud repository acts as a single source of truth, and anybody else that's working on the same project also does the same thing. Nowadays, I think GitHub is the most popular one. Some people use GitLab or Bitbucket. There's many more available, but basically all it is really just a cloud copy of your project and you keep that as your source of truth. So anybody that wants to join in with you on your same project has to go through the same thing. So arguably the most important language to know is SQL or SQL as some people pronounce it. Doesn't really matter how you say it. Basically, it's a data querying language for relational databases. Data querying meaning getting data from, and relational databases meaning a set of tables with rows and columns that all have a defined relationship between them. So the reason why SQL is such an important language is because it allows you to access and manipulate the data in the relational database. Now, most likely the data that you'll have access to will be stored in a relational database, and you might be thinking, why not just extract the data first and then put it in Python or R and then manipulate the data from there? Well, that's because performance-wise, that's a very bad idea. Usually you want to keep the manipulation in the relational database and then extract the data for your projects. Typically as well, most companies have some kind of reporting tool connected to the relational database. And what you would usually do is you would write a piece of SQL code that pulls the data that you need into the correct format so that then the reporting tool can pull the data from. If you do it that way, it really speeds up processing times rather than just extracting the entire data set into the report and then manipulating it there. So just make sure that you know even the basics of SQL, because even just knowing how to put a couple of tables together will really save up a lot of time in terms of processing, especially if the data is big. So the issue with data visualization with things like Python and R is that they're not really designed very well for automating reports. Tableau and Power BI are probably the most popular data visualization tools at the moment, and they're both used for reporting purposes. They're both typically used in business intelligence, and they're very good at creating automated reports. You have to remember that a big part of data science is being able to present results, and Tableau and Power BI allows you to do that very easily. The difference between Tableau and Power BI is that I think Tableau is much better for analysis, whereas Power BI is more of a static reporting system. In Tableau, everything fits together much better, and it's usually much more interactive, so you can do more complicated things with it. You can also handle larger data sets. However, it is very expensive to use unless you're a student. If you're a student, it's free, so in that case, I would recommend Tableau, but otherwise, it is a very expensive software to use. Power BI, on the other hand, is a little bit more awkward to use, and you have to learn something called DAX, which is their proprietary language. However, since Power BI is created by Microsoft, it integrates very well with Microsoft's cloud platform called Azure. And also the best part is that Power BI can be used for free. You don't need to be a student in order to use Power BI. You can download Power BI now and start using it. Personally, I've had experience with both software, so I think Tableau is the better one overall. However, it is very expensive. It isn't free unless you're a student, but it does have very good customer support. On the other hand, Power BI is free, and it's still very popular due to its integration with Microsoft's Azure. Nowadays, most companies use some form of cloud computing to some degree, the most popular one being AWS, followed by Microsoft's Azure, and then Google Cloud. In some cases, companies like Netflix rely entirely on cloud computing, so by knowing the basics of cloud computing, you can at least understand how the infrastructure works. In my opinion, data scientists should at least know the basics of cloud computing, cloud storage, and cloud AI. There are plenty of certificates that you can do offered by these cloud computing services that you can do online. Personally, I would recommend the AWS one simply because it's the most popular one. I don't think it's necessary to learn all of them. I think it's important to know at least one so that you have some kind of foundation for cloud computing, just because it's so common nowadays. So those were the tools that I think every data scientist should know. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. There's also a video up here that you might find interesting. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.